President Donald Trump made it very clear the minute that he announced he was running for office, his belief to the America needs to curtail immigration from south of the border in particular, specifically Central American and South American countries. He called Mexicans rapists. He said that some of them might be good people. And when he got into office, he instituted his famous Muslim ban to curtail even travel from Middle Eastern countries. And when he got the opportunity, him and his cadre of white supremacists, including Steve Bannon and Stephen Miller, crafted Title 42. What Title 42 does is enable our border officials to turn away migrants who are seeking asylum under the emergency powers of the president based upon coronavirus fears. Now, of course, during a worldwide pandemic, you allow extra powers to the executive branch to keep people safe until we find out what exactly is going on. But long since, we've seen every other coronavirus-related regulation be rolled back. Everything from masking in schools, social distancing, working from home, Zooming to every meeting, etc. However, conservatives remain steadfast in continuing to enforce Title 42 because it's part of their overall plan and scheme to limit immigration from Central American and South American countries. So much so that 19 Republican states sued the federal government to prevent it from allowing Title 42 to sunset this spring. This case went before the Supreme Court, and of course, with a 6-3 majority on the court, the Supreme Court voted to stop the Biden administration from allowing Title 42 to expire, therefore setting up the stage for oral arguments in February, where we'll get a final judgment. Associate Justice Neil Gorsuch, one of the conservatives on the court, actually sided with the progressives and authored a dissent along with Ketanji Brown Jackson, articulating the fact that this is beyond the scope of the powers of the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is now stepping out of simply calling balls and strikes and is actually setting national immigration policy, in this case, according to Justice Gorsuch. To talk more about what we can expect going forward on Title 42 and what this means to the migrant community, we're joined by a professor from Georgetown University, Dr. Nola Haynes. Dr. Haynes, how are you doing this evening?
I'm great, thank you.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. Yes, thank you so much for joining us. Can you talk a little bit about what Title 42 has done to migrants seeking asylum here in the United States of America?
Can you hear and see me? My Wi-Fi has not been my best friend lately.
Yes, we can. If you can hear me, I was just asking, what did you think Title 42 has done to the migrant community here in the U.S. during the course that's been in place?
You know, I'm happy that we're talking about this tonight, and I'm happy that you mentioned the travel ban, because immigration is definitely a matter of national security. And I've spent actually a great deal of time looking at the 2017 and 2020 travel bans through a national is the administration using explanations to pretty much ban a group of people that they do not want here in this country. And as you pointed out, yes, we were all struggling through COVID. So an argument can be made at that time, drastic measures had to be taken. But as you also mentioned, there's no need to continue these measures. With the travel ban, the reason used was global terrorism. That was debunked. And the reason that it's continuing now is because technically, yes, we are still in a global pandemic. But it is nowhere near as immigration. I understand that a lot of southern borders are overwhelmed with the situation on the border, but this is not the fix. And then secondly, this is also a matter of security, because we have to ask the question, who gets to be secured? Why is it just people coming in from the southern border having problems trying to get in, seeking asylum? And seeking asylum is something very specific. You are seeking to be safe. You are seeking to be secured from a very dangerous and violent situation in your home country. And my overall worry is, what is this going to look like for other immigrants seeking asylum, from browner countries, say Ethiopia or Haiti? I work in the Afghanistan space. This makes me worry for the ongoing situation there. So this is a situation that has far-reaching implications. And I think that there are people in our country who want to keep a certain group out of our country. And I think that they need to look within themselves and ask themselves why, because everyone deserves to be secured.
What do you think it means? I was very taken aback by Judge Gorsuch or Justice Gorsuch joining the progressives on the court and saying this is outside the purview of the Supreme Court. What do you think it means going forward, the fact that conservatives have this majority on the court where they can override even someone like Justice Gorsuch, a staunch conservative, and expanding the role of the court in setting national policy?
I listen to my students on this one, and they ask all the time, so what's the purpose of the Supreme Court when it is very clear that it is political? And the Supreme Court itself is supposed to be apolitical, but yet we describe justices based on their political standing. That's the problem. So I see that perhaps this may wade into the waters of further discussion about the legitimacy of the court. And I know that the justices have pushed back on that notion. But when, I'm in a classroom and I'm teaching the next group of world leaders and I'm listening to them and I'm taking their feedback, they don't believe in the United States Supreme Court. Once upon a time, if Congress was polling terribly, if the president was polling terribly, the United States Supreme Court always was polling favorably because there was a feeling that about the question of legitimacy. And that is actually within the purview of the United States Supreme Court once they actually decision make. What's going
go ahead, continue.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
I think the other question that has arisen is the cure for this, of course, would be comprehensive immigration reform. We have the Schumer compromise in 2013 that Republicans walked away from. We had the Obama compromise in 2015 that Republicans walked away from. We had Schumer come back in 2018 with Trump to try to pass comprehensive immigration reform that they walked away from. What are the chances of actual immigration reform happening anytime in the next 2 years?
Oh, that's a tricky question. With the way that the House and the Senate is set up right now, I did not mean to bring my goodness, I'm thinking about the Kevin Hart joke. But anyway, the way that the House and Senate is set up right now, we'll see. I am very hopeful that something will be done, but I will tell you this, dropping innocent people off in front of the vice president's home is not a way to solve it. Denying asylum seekers safety and security is not a way to solve it. So it definitely needs to be comprehensive reform, because right now we are contributing to the violence and the harm that these people are trying to escape. Can you imagine seeking asylum in a country that says all are welcome? I mean, this is a country full of immigrants. I mean, it seems to be completely antithetical to what we say that we stand for. And again, the question has to be asked, who gets to be secured? So what group gets to come in and seek asylum versus the groups that are kept out seeking asylum? And this is something that needs to be considered when we are thinking about Title 42, because people coming from South and Central America, and that is an issue because if it's impacting them, like I said earlier, what other groups will it impact that's seeking asylum? And one last thing, this is not the only time that the former administration tried to hack away at immigration, particularly with the travel ban. The travel ban, the later iterations of the International Nationality Act that allowed for people from browner countries to come into the United States in the late 60s. This was one of the things passed in the large civil rights bills across time that a lot of people don't think about. And so that. This is not the first attempt to keep people out that have melanin in their skin. And I just want to continue to say that. And I hope that I hope this temporary ban will be just that, a temporary ban.
It's interesting you mentioned people seeking asylum because after the Russian invasion of Ukraine, you had thousands of Ukrainian refugees coming to America seeking asylum, and there was none of this consternation. There was none of this talk about being overrun and them destroying Western civilization, as we hear from some on the political right. What exactly would comprehensive immigration reform look like? We've heard various arguments, whether that be amnesty, a pathway to citizenship, expansion of H-1B visas. What do you think has to be included needed, something that could actually get bipartisan agreement?
That's a really big question for someone who works in that area that I do not work in that area. What I will say is, I think that, so first of all, there are tons of different types of visas. So it depends on what sort of visa people from Ukraine are coming in on. Like, say, for instance, a lot of our allies, and it should be across the board the same for everyone. If one set of rules apply for asylum seekers, it should apply for another group of asylum seekers. There are those who say, but it's different when the U.S. has some level of direct involvement, say Afghanistan, or the way that we assist in military and security assistance in Ukraine. Okay, that's one argument. But at the end of the day, I think that asylum seeking laws should stand across the board. And I do understand the additional element and responsibility, like with the Afghanistan situation. But for me, at the end of the day, it does not work in our best interest when we are turning away brown folks and we are letting in folks who have less melanin. I don't think that's what the country wants to stand for. I don't think that's what the Biden-Harris administration wants to stand for. And I think going forward, we literally have to look at it through that lens, because right now it's not a good look. It is not a good look at all.
You mentioned the direct influence of American policy on immigration. Do you think that we have to start holding the American government accountable for its role in creating this immigration crisis? President Trump tried to overthrow the government of Venezuela a couple years ago, replacing Maduro with Juan Guaido. And because of that, we have a massive migrant crisis coming from Venezuela, walking all the way up Central America to come to America. America snorts up about half the cocaine the world produces. And because of that, drug gangs are running rampant. The FARC in Colombia, the Northern Triangle in Mexico. Does America need to change its policy to Central and South America before it does anything about immigration here?
Well, first of all, you're not about to get me to step on no landmines, first of all. And secondly, I don't like to comment on things that really are not in my wheelhouse. And I really can't speak to what's going on in Central America in terms of the drug situation, in terms of what the former administration's goals might have been there. What I will say, what I do know about in terms of how we view security and how we think about who gets to be secured, that's the lens in which I think about this. In terms of U.S. involvement and people snorting coke and cartels and stuff like that, that's not my wheelhouse.
All right, folks, back to our RObert Unfiltered video in just one moment.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us.
We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it.
This is about covering us.
Invest in black-owned media.
Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks.
We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible.
Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.